everyone! So for the last lesson, we will be looking at some carvings of dancers and deities at Angkor Wat, which is a temple in Cambodia. And we're going to compare some images of the carvings to real-life dancers. And we're going to compare the costumes and the gestures and try to make some connections. And then finally, we will try the gesture in one of the carvings. So for this lesson, all you need is comfortable clothing to move freely in and some open space for our final activity. So in this first image that came from a YouTube video called Royal Apsara Dancing in the Grounds of Angkor Wat, Cambodia complete. So you can see how she's actually performing at Angkor Wat, and right next to carvings that are based off of Apsara. And if you look at the crowns, they are very similar as well, even the skirts. And then you could also see how the Apsaras are all topless in the carving, but in the dance she's wearing a shirt. If you watch the YouTube video, you can also see how the dance brings the carvings to life. It is the dancer, the music, and the costumes that carry the energy and movement to give life to these carvings. And now let's look at another picture. And this is another picture of some 3 Apsaras and then a carving that is based on Apsara. And now for this one, if you take a look, the 3 Apsaras' crowns are actually different. So the person in the middle, who is the lead Apsara, she has 2 levels to her crowns. You can see like level 1 and then level 2 with the 3 circles, whereas the other 2 have only 1 level. And if you look in the carving, the dancer also has 2 levels, or 3 levels actually. Yeah, that dancer actually has 3 levels. And you can also see that they're both holding this type of flower as well. And then take a second to take a look and see if you can make any other comparisons between the carving and modern day Apsara. For example, you could look at the jewelry. So feel free to pause and try to think of it on your own. So you can see how there is a bracelet that the carving and the Apsaras are wearing. You can also see that they're both wearing an arm brace as well, and this collar goes across their neck. And the design of the skirts are very similar as well. So this is the last image for comparisons, and this is called this is from a YouTube video called The Royal Ballet of Cambodia, Robam, Preah, Thong, Boun, Soung, or Robam, Makar. I'm not sure if I pronounced the last one right, but you'll see if you were to look at both, their stance is very similar. They're both very low to the ground, and their knees are very bent. You can also see how their bodies are even like arched similarly. The major difference just being in the positioning of their hands, but their lower bodies look like virtually very similar. And then you could also look at make some comparisons between the skirts itself, and then also notice how one of the images includes a very tall and skinny crown, whereas the carving does not include the tall and skinny crown. So yeah, and that YouTube video, I really highly recommend you watch that one as well, because similar to the other YouTube video that I just recommended, this one also shows how dance brings the carvings to life, and how the dance has been preserved over so many years. And now for the final image, we're going to take a look at an image of 6 dancers, and we're going to practice our memorization skills, because as you may know, memorization is very important to learning Cambodian classical dance, and so we're going to practice these skills for just a little bit. Take a look at this image and see if you see anything that's like a part of their costume that you may have seen before, whether that's from other lessons that we've done, or from this lesson, or from your own research. And so just take a moment and look through it. So now that you've looked through it, notice how they are wearing anklets, and which you may have seen in other videos, and then they also have the arm brace, and then that neck design, the color has come back as well, and the design at their waist as well. And finally, you may have noticed that the dancer to the far left is doing a gesture that looks a lot like the Jeep that we've learned before, where she looks like she's doing this. And yeah, so finally, before I let you know what the final activity is, I want to leave these questions with you. First one being, why do you think that the carvings at Angkor Wat is important to Cambodian classical dance? And the second, why do you think the carvings were made at Angkor Wat? And so feel free to think about it to yourself, or discuss it with a family member or a friend. And the final activity is to choose any of the dancers in these carvings, whether it's this image that we've discussed for the final image, or any of the other carvings in this video, or maybe you want to look one up. Try to mimic their gesture. So yeah, and that concludes this lesson and the series, and I hope you enjoyed.